It happens on a Tuesday, which feels important later, though you couldn't say why. Tuesdays are nobody's favorite day. Nothing is supposed to happen on a Tuesday. Your car dies at the intersection of Maple and Ninth, which is also nobody's favorite intersection. It's the kind of street that exists purely to connect other streets. No coffee shops, no benches, just a gas station on one corner and a chain pharmacy on the other, and a whole lot of nothing happening very loudly. You pull to the shoulder. You turn the key twice more out of optimism, and then once more out of stubbornness. Nothing. You get out and stand next to the car the way people stand next to broken things, like proximity might help. He's already there, before you call anyone. Not in a dramatic way. He just pulls up behind you in a truck that has clearly lived a full life, gets out and says, "Hood." Not a question. An instruction. You pop the hood. He looks at the engine the way people look at things they actually understand, which is rare enough that you notice it. He has grease already on his hands, which means this is not his first car today. He's wearing a gray t-shirt with a small tear at the collar, and he's focused in a way that makes the rest of the street go quiet. "Alternator," he says. "Is that bad?" He looks at you then. Really looks at you. Brown eyes, tired around the edges, like he's been awake since before the sun had any real commitment to the day. "Depends on your afternoon," he says. You laugh. You don't mean to. It comes out short and real, and he almost smiles, the corner of his mouth moving like it considered it, and then thought better. His name is Daniel. You learn this from the patch on his jacket, which is in the back seat of the truck, which you see when he reaches in for a tool. Daniel. Stitched in red thread on dark canvas. He doesn't ask your name. He works quietly. You lean against your car and watch because there's nothing else to do, and because watching someone who knows exactly what they're doing is one of the few genuinely calming experiences available to a person. He doesn't narrate. He doesn't explain. He just works, and the afternoon light comes down flat and gold across the street, and somewhere 2 blocks over someone is mowing the lawn, and the whole thing feels like a photograph from someone else's life. You live around here, you ask, because silence eventually becomes its own kind of pressure. "No," he says. "Just passing through?" "Working through." He doesn't look up. Different thing. You think about that distinction for longer than it deserves. He's done in 40 minutes. He wipes his hands on a cloth from his back pocket, which is the kind of move that only works if you've done it 1,000 times. He tells you the alternator is a temporary fix, that you'll need a real repair in the next week or it'll happen again, somewhere less convenient. You thank him. You reach for your wallet, because that's what you're supposed to do. He shakes his head. One small motion. "I was already stopped," he says, which isn't really an explanation, but somehow closes the subject completely. He gets back in the truck. You stand there. He pulls out, merges into traffic, and is gone in the time it takes you to think of something to say. You don't get his number. You don't ask where he works. You don't do anything that a person with any awareness of how moments function would have done. You just stand on the shoulder of Maple and Ninth while the afternoon keeps going without any concern for what just happened. The car gets fixed the following week. The mechanic talks the entire time. You nod and answer, and somewhere in the back of your mind you are thinking about a man who works in silence and calls the difference between passing through and working through a distinction worth making. This is the beginning of something that has no business beginning. You look for the truck for a while, not obsessively, just the way your eyes adjust to a new thing and then keep scanning for it after. Every gray truck on the highway, every set of taillights pulling away. You know it's irrational. The city is full of trucks. Daniel is not a unique name. The grease on his hands could belong to any of 100 men within a 5-mile radius. You stop looking after 3 weeks. Or you tell yourself you stop looking. You go on with your life, which is a full life. You have work that matters and friends who show up, and an apartment with good light and a plant on the windowsill that you have kept alive for 2 years, which is longer than some of your relationships, and frankly more impressive. You are not a person waiting for something. You are a person who has things. And still, there are these moments. Small, specific, uninvited. The first time you drive through that intersection again, and your chest does something without your permission. A man at a hardware store who focuses on a label the same way, with that same complete absorption, and you have to leave the aisle. A gray truck in a parking lot that you slow down to read the plates of and then feel immediately embarrassed about. The thing about Daniel is that you don't know enough about him for the feeling to make sense. You know his first name from a jacket patch. You know he was already awake before the day had decided anything. You know he draws a line between passing through and working through, which means something about how he moves through the world. You know the corner of his mouth almost smiled and then chose not to. That's it. That's the full inventory. And yet, there's something about a person who shows up without being called and leaves without taking anything that stays in you in a way that people who stay rarely do. You're 31 when it happens, and you're 35, and the intersection of Maple and 9th has a coffee shop on one corner now. And you think about that sometimes too. You date a man named Peter for 2 years. He is good and present and laughs loudly at things and fills the apartment with a particular kind of warmth that you are grateful for. On a Tuesday evening, you are sitting across from him at dinner, and he is telling you something funny about his coworker, and you are laughing in the right places, and somewhere inside you a door is very quietly closing. Not because of Daniel. You understand that. Daniel is not the reason. Daniel is just the shape that a feeling took once, briefly, at the corner of an irrelevant street. What closes the door is the understanding that you have been waiting, without ever naming it, for the feeling of being found by someone who wasn't looking for you, of a moment with no agenda, of a hand that fixes something and asks nothing. You end things with Peter on a Thursday, which feels right. Peter deserves a day with more weight to it. You're 38 when you tell someone this story for the first time. A friend, late, wine, the kind of conversation that happens when the evening gets long enough. She listens, and at the end she says, "You made him up. He was real," you say. "I know. But the one you kept, that one's yours." You sit with that for a long time. Here's what you know at 38 that you didn't know at 31. Some people don't stay in your life. They stay in you. And that's a different kind of staying, quieter and more permanent and completely beyond your control. You can't evict it. You can't reason with it. You can only learn to live in the same house with it, which eventually stops feeling strange. Daniel fixed your car on a Tuesday and left before you found the words, and somewhere in that clean, unfinished moment, something in you decided that this was what it was supposed to feel like. Unasked for, undemanding, already leaving. You drive through Maple and 9th sometimes. The coffee shop is good. You've become a regular. You order black coffee. You sit by the window. You watch the street. You are not waiting. But if a gray truck pulled to the shoulder and a man got out who knew the difference between passing through and working through, you know exactly what you would say this time. You know. You've known for a decade.